Hi Faith Box family, I'm Lacey back with you again for the month of sacrifice. Today is day 9, and today I believe we're finishing up the Abraham sacrifice part. And so the scripture comes from Genesis 22:13 through 14, and it says, "Then Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught by its horns in a thicket. So he took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering in place of his own. Abraham named the place Yahweh Yireh, which means the Lord will provide." And before we get into the devotional part, if you remember a couple days ago on day 7, we talked about Abraham. He knew God's character and he had faith because he said God will provide a sheep. And then today we see that God did provide a ram for Abraham to sacrifice in place of Isaac. And I know it's not in here, but I wanted to real quick refer to Hebrews, where Abraham is remembered for his faith. And it's because of his faith that he was able to be willing to sacrifice for God. And Hebrews 8 and 9 and 17 through 19, it says, "By faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. By faith he went to live in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise." So in those two verses, we see that it was more than a sacrifice of Isaac. He sacrificed in the beginning because he left the only home he ever knew to go to a place he didn't know because God asked him to. And then in verses 17 through 19, it says, "By faith Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises was in the act of offering up his only son, of whom it was said, 'Through Isaac shall your offspring be named.' He considered that God was able even to raise him from the dead, from which, figuratively speaking, he did receive him back." And that was Hebrews 11:8 and 9, and Hebrews 11:17 through 19. So Abraham was able to sacrifice because of his faith in God. And the devotional for today talks about memorializing our sacrifices. And it says one of the best practices you can have is to memorialize the moments God provides for you in response to sacrifice. You see this exemplified all throughout the Old Testament. Sometimes people set up a physical memorial, sometimes they offer a sacrifice, sometimes they celebrate with a feast, and other times, like in this case with Abraham, they name a location after what God has done. You can do the same type of thing. You can throw a party, mark a day on the calendar, or simply write about the event in a journal. It is that easy. By making this a practice in your life, it honors God, tells the story of his faithfulness in your life, and instills confidence for future moments of faith and sacrifice. What are some examples of God providing for you in response to a sacrifice you made? How can you memorialize these moments of your life? And honestly, this is kind of hard for me to say, but when I was reading this and it said, what are some examples of God providing for you in response to a sacrifice you've made? I couldn't really think of much. I don't know that I've actually given a big sacrifice to God. I mean, there's been moments like in high school and later on that, I would kind of make a stand for God. I remember one time in high school, there was a difficult argument and thing going on, and I just paused and prayed, and somebody instantly was like, "Well, Lacey's over there praying." And then I kind of just took a stand and said, I'm going to pray, That's what I do when things are difficult. I pray. And I know this is kind of lengthy today, but I just wanted to touch on it. And because I don't really remember a big sacrifice, I'm just thinking maybe I need to pray and ask God to lead me to something that he would like me to sacrifice for him. So maybe you guys can pray with me. Maybe some of you have the same thing. You don't really remember a sacrifice like, Abraham did when he was willing to sacrifice his son Isaac. And maybe we can pray together that God would open our eyes and let us see something that he would like us to sacrifice to make our relationship stronger with him. I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the month of sacrifice. Bye.